Hi everyone, I'm Kathleen Velasco, and this is my Pecha Kucha for Section 8, Working for Social Justice, and a synthesis of concepts from various chapters. So why a social justice approach? Well, because it considers how social group differences intersect with systems of domination and subordination to create privilege or disadvantage. In learning about this, we can advocate for a broader world for all people and help others do the same. It is especially important that educators become agents of social justice when we consider that educational spaces can mirror the oppressive structures of the society they exist in. Many things within the classroom can function to further oppress marginalized students and perpetuate white supremacy. This is evident when we look at data that shows who even becomes a teacher. White teachers continue to represent the vast majority of public school teachers in both traditional and charter schools. We have to ask, why is the non-white teacher population staying the same while non-white student population is increasing? The way we teach can also say a lot. Desks that face the front of the classroom value the teacher's position. Rules that deny access to bodily functions or the right to speak privilege teacher voice. Lecture-based classrooms value and privilege the educator's ideas over the students. In addition, what we learn can also send a message about whose narrative is worth studying. As Tatum notes, a young woman preparing to be a high school English teacher expressed her dismay that she had never learned about any Black authors in any of her English courses. This is just one example of how dominant culture is established as the norm by which others are weighed. This projection of dominant culture experience and others like it is reminiscent of Jung's definitions of cultural imperialism. What we are subconsciously learning from the classroom structure about who can teach, who's worth learning about, and who we are can lead to oppression. Oppression depends on this internalization and acceptance of our own disadvantaged status. This can lead itself to psychological colonization. As we learned, oppression is intersectional and exists on different levels. We might begin to see how structures such as classroom spaces can perpetuate oppression on an individual or interpersonal level, and how that mirrors oppressive structures happening at the systemic level in society. Special attention should be given to the educational space, since students experience it as a major structure in their lives after their own family structure. This impressionable time can leave us vulnerable to misinformation about people that are different from ourselves. For example, learning about history from the perspective of colonizers, or learning only a limited narrative about African Americans as Blacks in history, can create stereotypes while omitting some people's history and develop prejudice later on in life. Racial prejudice can be even more dangerous when combined with social power. The definition of institutional racism on page 75 notes that racial prejudice, when combined with social power, which is access to social, cultural, and economic resources, can lead to the institutionalization of racist policies. Despite these embedded structures, we have the power to disrupt this cycle of socialization. In relearning or gaining new awareness of consciousness, we begin to think, to challenge, or question the system. We can choose the direction for change, the movement toward liberation. Educators can and should constantly check themselves and engage in critical self-reflection. Here are some of the questions that educators can ask themselves. Becoming more self-aware about our own identity categories. seeking re-education, and breaking the cycle of socialization can allow us to do the same for others. We can consider others' identity categories, reflect about how that might privilege them, and build relationships. We can deconstruct the oppressive structure of the classroom by co-constructing the classroom. Classroom rules can be adjusted. Classroom setup can be constructed to foster collaboration. Syllabi can be adjusted and worked on collaboratively with students, and the curriculum can become more inclusive. One of the most powerful things we can do as educators is engage in meaningful dialogue. According to Keating, the words we use shape what we perceive, which in turn shapes how we act. Language has the power to devalue or further marginalize certain groups, the power to affect how they're perceived, and maybe even shape how others act towards them. One of the things that some of the educators that I work around do is use language like I've listed below. In discussion, saying things like, "What I'm hearing from you is that," or saying, "Let me know if I'm not understanding," but can make a huge difference. By engaging in meaningful dialogue and critical self-reflection, we can begin to build empathy. Empathy involves taking an interest in the facts of other people's lives, seeing them as humans outside of the classroom, and thinking about how their own identity categories might affect how they engage in the classroom. So what can we do? We can acknowledge the oppression when we see it. We can learn to listen and validate the experiences of others. We can take action in the community around us, and we can share with others.